Welcome back to Conquering Conversations, everyone. So glad you tuned in. I'm Kirk Scott, co-head of school. I will be your host this episode as we have an incredible conversation with Beth Aune of Desert OT for Kids, as we're going to help conquer those meltdown moments with our children. So Beth has been a huge help to our school and to thousands of families across the Coachella Valley. So tune in. It's going to be a great conversation. Enjoy. This is the episode that when we kind of dreamt up having a podcast that came alongside our parents, I was like, we have to have Beth Aune. We have to have her on, and hopefully multiple times. But thank you guys for joining us to the podcast where we're helping train up the next generation of conquerors. But this episode, very excited, as we're going to be focused on help for us parents, for those strong-willed little ones that we love so much. And even if your child isn't, always strong-willed, they all have those moments. And Beth is the person that will help us get behind what's going on and help us understand. But just to kind of introduce you, Beth, she is the founder of Desert OT for Kids. That's occupational therapy. She has 27 years of pediatric occupational therapy experience, school-based and clinical. She's author of 3 books, Solutions for the Inclusive Classroom, but then she took that beyond the classroom to outside the classroom and then to the home. Autism spectrum disorder certified specialist, all the things. Just been a huge resource to us at Desert Christian Academy, but more importantly to me, I'm Kirk Scott. I should introduce myself. Kirk Scott is a co-head of school. Me and my wife, she revolutionized the Scott household. As if you don't know, we have 4 boys. They're all older now, in 20s and teenage. But when they were younger, our house was a mess. We did have one of our little ones with a sensory processing issue. So we went to Beth and we found out it really wasn't our child that was the issue. It was our household. And so she came in and really taught us how to support not just our little one, but just how to organize our household. And our whole life changed. So that's why if you're sitting here and your child doesn't have any sort of diagnosed issue, great. Please listen, because what we found was what Beth helped us with. It applies to everybody, all the kids. So thank you. Thank you for joining, and thank you
for having me.
Absolutely. She's the one that we call when we have any kind of special issues going on in classrooms, and she always helps us. So let's dive in. First, we kind of want to understand strong-willed, emotionally intense kids, or just moments, and just kind of helping our parents understand that. So when we describe a child as strong-willed, what might that really mean, like developmentally or neurologically?
Well, that's a big question. And I think as we go on in this podcast, that question will continue to be answered in more details as we go along, because that's a huge umbrella,
Yes.
Strong-willed. I think, it's important really to understand that children are a product of their environment, first and foremost. The behaviors that we witness and the behaviors that we see are really about communication. And the way a child behaves is primarily a communication to us as professionals and as parents as to what kind of strategies and supports can we give this child to help this child through this. We hear a lot of terms like self-regulation, that children need to learn to self-regulate. And really, I like to reframe that term to co-regulation. Because especially small children, if they had the skills to self-regulate,
Right.
they would do it.
Right.
But they don't.
Right.
So I really like to kind of reframe that to co-regulation and just really look at like what's happening within the environment, what's happening within the parent-child dynamic, You know, as parents and as adults, we have our own baggage and we have our own issues that come into a situation, and that might really reflect how we interact with our children. So we really need to raise our own self-awareness of ourselves and what we're bringing to the table. And then tasks. We need to look at what's going on in that situation and what's going on in that task. You know, does the child have the developmental readiness to do what we're asking them to do from a language standpoint, a behavioral standpoint, emotional, motor skills, whatever it is it developmentally appropriate for that child to be doing what it is that we're asking? So I think we really need to have a good, solid foundation on what is developmentally expected. You know, we hear about the terrible twos. I don't know about you, but my kids, the twos were easier for me because I could kind of distract them and tease them into doing what I needed to do. And actually the threes got a little bit more difficult because they would just really dig their heels in. And so then that's where that power struggle comes in. And we can talk about, as we go along, how to avoid those power struggles as parents.
I think the key, like, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's probably what I experienced, my wife and I, the biggest hurdle. You said all children are a product of their environment, and that's like, as parents, we already feel stressed out. We already feel burdened, and then to even embrace that, you first have to get over the fact that you're not a failure. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden now it's not the kid's fault. It might be my fault as the parent. I know that was a big hurdle for us to jump over to get to the other side, to where we were actually in a spot to where we could change some things. So how do you help parents, I mean, jump that hurdle? Just it, because like you said, the truth is the truth. Like,
it really is. And I think that you know, you use the word fault. I would also maybe reframe that word as well, because if we as parents go into a situation and we think it's our fault that our child acted like that, then that's not going to benefit us either. You know, and the fact of the matter is that, you know, every family that I've ever worked with loves their child to death and wants the best for their kid, and they want peace. And I think to have that balance of we don't want to overanalyze every little thing, because if we do that, then as parents we're walking on eggshells and we're looking at our kid and we're anticipating, and so that arousal and energy level is just like, you know, it's way up there. So I think that the biggest thing to do is just to sort of try to relax as a parent. You know, we want to do a good job, but we don't want to overparent, and we don't want to look at every little thing. So when I work with families, it's really about helping parents identify, like, what is the biggest thing that's kind of getting in the way in your family dynamics. You know, what's causing the most chaos? You know, what are you and your wife arguing about on how to handle a kid? You know, what are the kids telling you, either verbally or non-verbally or by their behaviors? And it's really about not looking at every tiny little thing that we're doing, but it's more about, like, looking at the patterns and, like, what's the overall thing, and then what's the thing that just kind of keeps coming up here. You know, so if this situation is difficult and then this situation is difficult, what's the theme that's kind of coming up here? And sometimes it can be maybe the parent is reacting too quickly, you know, or maybe it can be everybody's tired. You know, it's Friday and we just tried to take 4 kids to the grocery store, you know, and of course that's maybe not the best time. So I think that's the biggest thing, is to really help parents put, like, this detective brain on, and just to kind of, like, analyze the whole situation and just take a pause, take a beat. We don't have to have an answer for everything right away. There's some things that we don't even need to address. So I think that's the biggest thing is to help parents prioritize. And then also, I want parents to feel successful. So if I have a family that comes in and they have a lot of different issues going on, we can't address all those issues at once, because even the most well-intentioned parent isn't going to be successful if we have too many strategies and we're addressing too many things.
Right.
So it's sort of like, we as parents and professionals need to be successful too. So let's start with this one thing. Let's work on that. Let's keep it simple. Let's feel successful as a parent and as the child feels successful. And then let's move on to the next thing. So a lot of it is for parents. It's just helping them realize we're not gonna fix everything all at once.
No, that's so helpful. I love reframing the fault, because that's just, I think, what as parents we feel. That's the emotional weight that we feel, but it's not. It's not anybody's fault. It's just we're just walking through challenging scenarios and just trying to figure out what's the best way to navigate that. So
Exactly.
I love that you talk about co-regulation versus self-regulation, because any educator, any teacher knows that self-regulation just isn't a thing.
No, it's not.
Even into the high school, it's just not a thing. So that co-regulation or difficulty with it, how does that play into what parents see as defiance? Those defiant moments, those meltdowns, the things that we just derails our entire day.
Right.
What co-regulation, how does that play into those moments or potentially help those moments?
Right. Well, I think, honestly, I think that there are times, and I think that's difficult to kind of tease out. I do think that there are times where maybe kids are defiant, but then we need to kind of look at what situations are they being defiant about, and is this something that has been going on for a long time, and what kind of changes can we make to see what happens with that defiance. And again, getting into this power struggle is not beneficial for parent or child. And we have to ask ourselves, how long has this situation been going on? What have I been doing to address this situation, and has it been working? And usually the answer to how it's been working is no. Okay, so does it make sense to continue to keep doing the same thing over and over and get the same results? We want to get a different result. So expecting a child to change their behavior is out of their own volitional will is pretty tough. So what we kind of want to look at is like, okay, is there something that I can do differently? And because I did this differently, did this change my child's behavior? And developmentally, children are at different stages where they're trying to find their own autonomy, and we want to encourage that. We want to encourage some choices. We don't want to teach kids they can't say no all the time, because what happens when our daughter starts dating and she's taught you don't say no to a person in power. That's not a happy situation there.
No.
So, I think that there are, as with any of us in life, there are non-negotiables and there are negotiables, and some of those stay pretty static, and some of them change as we grow and develop. And I think to help our children understand and go into a situation of this isn't a choice time. This is a I need you to do this right now time. I think that a lot of what we do as parents and as educators is front loading. That front loading the expectation and helping your children understand what that expectation is before you go into it. So it's all these proactive strategies that we can implement, and we'll talk about a lot of those, I'm sure, as we're going on, versus reactive strategies. So the reactive strategies and picking up the pieces is what's frustrating for parents, It's okay, now I'm dealing with this meltdown after the fact. So are there some assurances and are there some things that we can put into place to not completely take away the meltdowns, but maybe limit them? Or maybe in terms of duration, intensity, and frequency, maybe they're happening less often, maybe they're less intense, they don't last as long, and everybody recovers from them more quickly.
Oh, it's great. So you said earlier, like, all behavior is communication, and that was a big aha, I think, for me, and then a lot of parents. So when you're talking to parents and teachers that are working with challenging behaviors that show up, how can they shift from seeing bad to reframing that bad behavior into something that's more something's being communicated? So could it be like some needs are being unmet? So
Yes.
How can parents kind of see behavior differently, just as something that needs to be corrected, and and bring it into a different lens?
I think just again looking at patterns. When are these things happening most often? And I think that when we're in the middle of a meltdown, and a child's meltdown, it's very challenging to stay calm, and it's very challenging to analyze that situation. But you can do that later, afterwards, after the kids are back in bed and the spouses are talking about what happened, or you are just independently reflecting. When you're in a nice calm state and you have free brain to be able to really look at this situation and take some notes, write some things down, I think that you'll see that there are clear indicators of why that behavior is happening at certain times, and to be able to be in a clear mind. So I think that that's part of the thing that people don't routinely do, is that reflection afterwards. And even from a positive standpoint, what did I do? What did I do that actually helped my kid get through this?
Right.
What did I do correctly? Because that's the other thing that happens too. I think that sometimes parents don't even recognize sometimes that all the great stuff that they did that actually helped.
Right.
And so then because we're in this high arousal state ourselves emotionally. So I think that that's really critical, is to have some time, some alone time, when we are in a nice calm state where we can actually to either talk it through or think it through or write it through or whatever we need to do, and then just be like, oh my gosh, that's why that happened. Of course, it's amazing when I talk to parents and teachers, when I'll point something out and they just look at me like, well, duh. How did I not see that?
Right.
It was right there in front of me. And I said, well, we're human beings too. So if our arousal state is too high, we're not accessing our frontal lobe.
Right.
We're not accessing that reasoning aspect. We're still reacting emotionally.
Yep.
And when we're in an emotional situation, that we can't reflect and we can't analyze. So I think it's really important for parents to have that time in their day where they set aside some quiet reflection time, prayer time, whatever it is, whatever it is that they need.
What are some more common examples of misunderstood behaviors that you've come across? I know every child's different. Every situation needs to kind of be analyzed in its uniqueness. But what are some common themes that have popped up in your career where the behavior is initially interpreted by the parent as just my kid's being a punk?
Right.
And you're just like, well,
yeah.
There's another side. What are a couple examples of those that have popped up?
Well, I think if you look at how the nervous system regulates. Okay, so our nervous system, we have to be in a calm, alert, arousal state in order to effectively function, right? So when our nervous system is disrupted, we generally have pretty clear-cut responses. That's fight, fight, freeze. Okay, so some of those, so if you look at like what's aligned with those certain behaviors at certain ages and stages of development, so a fight response. So when we're overly aroused, we all do it. We all have it. We all have that same response too. So let me just give you an example of a situation where different people are going to react differently. Okay. So, but it's still a nervous system response. So my daughters and I were out running in the neighborhood, and I have 2 daughters, and it was me. So there were 3 of us out running in the neighborhood, and we're just running along. Everything's fine. We're all doing the same exact thing, same situation. And somebody's dog got out and just came running, snarling, yipping, biting, all of that. So one of my daughters just took off and ran the other direction. The other one just completely froze, didn't even like know what to do. And then I took my hat off and started hitting the dog. So same exact situation.
Right.
But 3 completely different responses. But the nervous system reacted the same way. It's still a nervous system response. So when you look at certain behaviors, and if a child is in not a great regulatory state, then we look at, say, fight. Okay, so we might have a 1.5 to 3-year-old hit you, slap at you, pull your hair. That's a fight response. Throw things, hit, stomp on the ground, flop on the ground, that kind of thing. Flight, you may have a child completely run away from you and act like they don't want to hear you, they don't want to listen, and they completely disengage. That's a flight response. We have, you can see it sometimes. They cover their ears, literally cover their ears. And then a freeze response is more like a shutdown response, like you're trying to talk to your child and they're just looking at you like, and you're asking all these why questions, and they're just like, that kind of thing. So I think that we have to look at what kind of state is my kid in when they're exhibiting these behaviors. Okay, so sometimes there is just plain naughty behavior. I'm going to hit my sibling because I want that toy that they have. Okay, so if your kid was already just in a nice, happy state and they were just playing fine, and then all of a sudden that hitting occurred, well, that's not a nervous system response. That's a, I want this.
Yeah, selfish.
So then our response as parents is going to be different. We're going to react differently to that same behavior, and we're going to give the tools that helps the child learn what they could do differently.
Good. So in those moments, those unregulated moments, or whether it's just naughty behavior, whatever the situation is, what are the things that parents typically do to either escalate it, or things that parents can do to bring some peace and some calm? Okay.
The first thing that happens, that the mistake that's made, is we overtalk the situation. I hear, or we use general terms to try to help our kids through things that really aren't very helpful. So we have to look at the brain development of our children. They're very black and white, concrete thinkers. So one mistake that's made is asking a child why.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
They have no clue. And that's what they tell you, right?
I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Or, we can sit a child in timeout and we can say, I need you to think about your behavior, and you're going to come back and tell me what you're going to do differently. Well, most of them aren't going to come back and be able to say, that was really a poor choice I made. Next time I think I'm going to do it this way.
Right.
Timeouts are great for kind of separating people a little bit and just giving people a little chill out, calm down kind of a thing. They're really great for that. They're great for parents too, because that gives us time to kind of step back. So, we don't use the word timeout when it's those kind of things. We just say, oh, you know, we're all having big feelings right now. We need a break from each other. We're gonna wait. We're gonna come back, and then we're gonna figure this out. So, I think asking a child why, and then talking too much to the kid, just like blah, 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 just like, you know, telling them what they're doing wrong and analyzing the situation and just being verbal, and then the kid is just like in absolutely zero condition to be able to hear these things that you're saying. You might be completely right.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter. They're just not ready to hear that. Staying close. If your kid is hitting you and they're upset and they're pulling your hair and they're charging at you, and then you're just staying right there and you're saying, no, nice hands, don't hit. Well, you know, they're not going to hear your words, but they're going to see your body there, which is a clear open invitation to hit you again. You know, so just disengaging. So I think your nonverbal communication is pretty critical in these situations. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we trying to get our child to do? 9 out of 10 times it's just calm down. You know, quit kicking, quit hitting, quit screaming, quit spitting, whatever it is that they're doing. So I think when we're thinking about how do we stop our kids from doing something, I think when we have that mindset, then our efforts are going into eliminating the negative behaviors, which is kind of icky. You know, it's sort of a negative mindset from the beginning. They need to stop this. I need to keep them from doing this. How do I get them to stop doing this? Well, then the flip side of that is, what is it that you would like to see instead? Let's put our efforts there. It's the same amount of effort. We're still going to have to put in a lot of effort, but let's put our effort on teaching that replacement behavior. And if you look at habits, you know, there's a good reason that rehab is 28 days. You know, it takes an adult. They don't send you to rehab to stop using and drinking or gambling or whatever the addiction is. The focus on that is not stop doing this, it's establishing a different way of living. Right.
New habits.
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same for kids. How do we help our kids, and how do we as parents establish new patterns of behavior that are effective and peaceful, as many as possible?
All right, that concludes part 1 of our conversation with Beth Aune. Thank you for tuning in. She has a lot more to share. So next episode is going to be part 2 of this conversation, as Beth's going to share even greater insights and more practical resources and helps for you, the parents, as you're just navigating the everydays of being a parent and the challenges, and turning those challenges into successes. So thank you for joining. Like, subscribe, so that you can make sure you get part 2 of this incredible conversation. We'll see you next time.